Chike once struck a deadly bargain with Alagbaga, the ancient god of destruction, trading 20 years of his life in exchange for wealth and power. In those years, he ruled with a reign of terror far greater than his late father's. He seized lands, displaced families, and even kings feared his shadow. His power grew darker when Mazikalu, a respected elder, dropped dead after opposing him a warning that Alagbaga walked with him. But now, the 20 years are over. Chike is restless, haunted by sleepless nights, knowing the god has come to collect his life. In desperation, he returns to the shrine, spilling the blood of cocks and begging the chief priest to plead on his behalf, for he is not ready to die. The Covenant is calling, but can Chike escape his fate? Subscribe now to follow the next chilling chapter of this tale. The night air was thick and heavy, the smell of burning herbs curling through the shrine. Chike knelt before the altar, sweat dripping from his brow, his heart pounding so loud he thought the priest could hear it. The flames from the oil lamps flickered, casting shadows that seemed to mock his trembling figure. "Great priest," Chike's voice cracked as he pressed his forehead to the cold earth. "I have come with a request, no, with a covenant. I ask that Alagbaga himself be born in human form through my bloodline. Not now, not tomorrow, but in my future generation. He can choose the time, but let it be done." He lifted his head slowly, desperation filling his eyes. Imagine it, Alagbaga, walking as a man, blood at his command, worship without sacrifice, power without limit. No one would resist him. He would be free to destroy as he wills. His words hung in the air. The priest said nothing. The silence stretched, and with it came a deep unease. Outside, thunder rumbled as if the heavens themselves listened. The candles wavered, their flames shrinking low. Chike's breath caught. His hands shook as he pressed them tighter to the ground. Had he gone too far? Had he angered the god? His chest tightened. For a terrifying moment, he thought he was about to be struck dead where he knelt. Then, at last, the chief priest raised his staff and spoke, his voice low but filled with finality. "The god yields to your demand, Chike." Chike's head snapped up. His mouth fell open in disbelief. He accepts? The priest's eyes burned like coals in the half-light. "Yes, your life will be spared this night, but the covenant must be sealed with blood. Not just any blood. The blood of your family must be given in your place." Chike's lips trembled. "My family?" The priest's voice was stern. "It may be your brother. It may be one of your sons, but never your wife. The bloodline must feed the pact." A long pause. Then, slowly, the fear on Chike's face melted into a crooked smile. He rose to his feet, a strange confidence filling him. "So be it," he whispered, bowing low. He turned, his lips curling into triumph. As he walked out of the shrine, the night swallowed him, and though thunder still rolled in the distance, Chike's heart beat with victory. He felt really smart. He had outsmarted death. The night was still when Chike stepped into his compound. The moonlight painted his face, and for the first time in weeks, he was smiling. His wife, Adayaze, rushed forward, her brows knitted. "My husband, you look different. What happened?" Chike spread his arms wide, his voice booming with strange joy. "Wife, worry no more. The gods have remembered us. Today is a day of victory." Adayaze frowned. "Victory? But you left this house heavy, with no words to me. Now you return, laughing like a child. What is this?" Instead of answering, Chike clapped his hands. "Okay, Chukwu, Obina, bring the fattest goat from the pen. Tonight we shall eat as kings." The boys ran, their feet kicking up dust. Adayaze's worry deepened. "But, husband, that goat is for the new planting season. Why waste it now?" Chike's eyes flashed. "Do not call it waste, woman. Call it celebration. Life is sweet, Adayaze. Sweeter than you think. And we must eat to prove it." Soon, the goat was slaughtered. The air filled with the smell of roasting meat and hot spices. Chike himself stirred the pot, sweat on his brow. grinning like a man who had touched heaven. When the food was ready, he carried bowls to the mat and shouted, "Eat, my wife. Eat, my children. Fill your bellies till you can take no more, for tonight the gods have smiled on us." The children looked at one another, confused, but food won, and they dug in. Adeze chewed slowly, her eyes never leaving her husband. "My husband," she said softly, "you frighten me. What have you done?" Chike laughed, pouring himself calabash after calabash of palm wine. The liquid dripped down his chin as he raised the cup high. "What have I done? I have conquered death." Adeze's spoon slipped from her hand. The children froze, staring at their father. Chike leaned back, his laughter echoing through the compound. He slapped his chest proudly. "Yes, death came close, but I have outsmarted him. From tonight till the day I join the ancestors, no man, no spirit, no curse will bring me down." He drained his cup and shouted to the stars, "I, Chike, have conquered death." The compound fell silent, except for the crackling of the fire. Adeze's eyes glistened with unease, but she believed her husband was a wise man. She was glad the god of Alagobaga was smiling down on them. Chike kept laughing into the night. The god's requests for his family blood can wait tonight was for merriment. By the second day, Chike grew restless again. He could no longer sit still. His feet carried him back and forth across the compound, each step heavy, each breath troubled. His eyes darted toward the hut where his children played, and his heart trembled. "Whose blood shall it be?" he muttered under his breath. "My son's? My daughter? No, I cannot." He stopped, leaning against the wooden post of the hut. His daughter's laughter reached him, sharp and innocent, and it pierced him deeper than any spear. He shook his head violently. Not her. Not her. But his sons' voices rose next, laughter rolling through the air as they chased each other. Chike closed his eyes. Their faces flashed in his mind, bright, trusting, unaware. He pressed his hands to his ears, but the memories grew louder. He saw them running, playing, smiling. He could not bear it. "No!" he shouted suddenly, startling a hen nearby. His voice broke. "They are my blood. How can I give them to the gods? Alagbaga asks too much." His chest heaved as he sank onto the stool outside the hut. Sweat beaded across his forehead. His hands shook as though his own spirit was tearing him apart. From inside, his wife's voice came softly. "Chike, what troubles you? You do not eat. You do not sleep. Tell me, my husband." Chike looked up quickly, forcing a weak smile. "It is nothing, my wife. The work in the farm, the harvest, that is all." She stepped out, her eyes searching his face. "Do not lie to me, Chike. I see the fear in your eyes." But he waved her off, his tone sharp though his heart ached. "Go inside. It is nothing you should carry." Slowly, she obeyed, though her gaze lingered on him before she disappeared. Chike lifted his face to the sky, his lips trembling. "Alagbaga," he whispered, "you gave me wealth through my father's blood. Now you demand mine. Must it be my children? Must it be the ones I love?" The laughter of his children echoed again, this time louder, filling his ears like thunder. He pressed his hands against his head, rocking slightly. His heart knew the truth. The covenant was real, and the gods would not wait forever. But how could a father choose? Chike could not sleep. The image of his children's faces tormented him as he turned on his raffia mat. He sat up suddenly, gripping his knees, whispering, "No, I cannot give them. Not my blood." The next morning, he sat outside the compound, his face stern, when he heard hesitant footsteps approach. His heart tightened. It was Ibuka, his younger brother, the one he had cast out years ago, warning him never to step foot in the compound again. Chike's eyes darkened. "I thought I warned you, Ibuka. How many times must I say it? Stay away from me. Stay away from what is mine." Ibuka, thin and weary, bowed low, his voice trembling but firm. "Brother, life has dealt me heavy blows. My wife and children hunger daily. I have no land, no place to plant yam or cassava. I come not in pride, but in humility. Please, give me just a portion of our father's land, so my family may live." For a moment, Chike's rage boiled. His hands clenched as he rose, ready to chase Ibuka away. But then, like a cold wind, the priest's words echoed in his ears. "If you cannot bring your son or your daughter, then bring your brother." Chike froze, his breath caught. Could this be it? Could the gods themselves have sent Ibuka into his hands at this very moment? He studied his brother, the desperate look in his eyes, the hope trembling in his voice. Slowly, a strange smile crept across Chike's face. It was the first time in many days his lips had stretched so. "Ibuka." His voice softened, almost gentle. "You are my blood. My own mother bore us both. Why then should we live in hatred? I forgive you." Ibuka's eyes widened, tears filling them. "Brother, do you mean it?" "Yes," Chike nodded firmly, the smile never leaving his lips. "Tomorrow morning, return here. I will give you not just a piece of land, but all the lands you inherited from our father. Come early, and I will show you the boundaries myself." Ibuka fell to his knees, overwhelmed. "Oh, Chike, my heart has longed for this day. The gods have touched you at last. May blessings never depart from your household." Chike reached down, raising him with both hands. "Go home to your wife. Tell her the suffering is over. Tomorrow, your fortune changes." Ibuka left with tears of joy, his feet light as though he floated. At home, he rushed into the small mud hut, grabbing his wife's hands. "He has forgiven me. Chike has promised to restore all the land. Our children shall eat again. Our shame is ended." But his wife's face tightened. Her lips pressed hard. She shook her head slowly. "Be careful, my husband. You know Chike's heart. It is not a river that flows with kindness. He does not give without a hidden fire behind his eyes." Ibuka, blinded by hope, laughed and held her close. "No, not this time. This is my brother. Blood is stronger than hatred." The morning broke quietly, with the sun still soft over the village. Ibuka came early, just as Chike had hoped, his cutlass hanging over his shoulder and his face lit with innocence. Chike forced a smile, stretching out his hand, as if in warm greeting. "Ah, Ibuka, you came early," he said, his voice unusually cheerful. "Good, very good. Let me show you something." Ibuka's eyes brightened. For days, he had argued with himself about coming. He had promised never to return after Chike's sharp warnings, but something in his heart longed to see his brother again. And now, here was Chike, welcoming him. Perhaps blood was thicker than quarrels after all. They walked side by side, deeper into the farmland. The soil was rich, damp with dew, and stretched wide as far as the eyes could see. Birds chirped above, oblivious to the dark thoughts brooding in Chike's mind. Chike waved his hand toward a vast portion of land. His voice carried pride, but his eyes flickered with hidden intent. "This is yours, Ibuka. Look at it, fertile land. It will feed you and your children for years to come. If you like, I can even get laborers to clear it quickly for you." Ibuka stopped in his tracks. His chest rose and fell as tears welled up in his eyes. He had not expected this. For months, he had begged, argued, even cursed. But now, Chike was giving him land, and not just land, but the best of it. His throat tightened, and he whispered, "Brother, I don't deserve this kindness. After everything, you still think of me? Thank you, Chike. Thank you." He turned to face his brother fully, his eyes glistening with gratitude. He wanted to embrace him, to finally let go of the bitterness that had stood between them. But as his arms moved, Chike's hand tightened on the cutlass. In a flash, the blade rose and fell. The first blow landed on the back of Ibuka's neck. He gasped, his face frozen in shock and betrayal, stumbling forward on weak knees. "Chike, why?" he managed to whisper, his voice trembling. Chike's jaw clenched. He did not answer. Instead, with a grunt, he lifted the cutlass again. The second strike cracked against his brother's head, and Ebuka staggered, eyes wide in disbelief, blood staining the fertile soil their father once cherished. Chike struck again and again, each blow heavier, fueled not by anger but by desperation, by the haunting promise of Alagabaga. Ebuka's body finally gave way, collapsing to the ground, lifeless. Then, silence. The farmland that once echoed with their father's laughter now heard only the dripping of blood. It ran into the earth, dark and warm, soaking into the soil like a sacrifice claimed. Breathing heavily, Chike dropped to his knees. His hands trembled as he pulled out a calabash, quickly gathering the fresh blood while it was still warm. The chief priest's words rang in his mind, blood of your blood. And now, the calabash filled, gleaming red under the morning sunday. Chike's face was pale, his heart racing. He did not allow himself to look at Ebuka's body. Not yet. The deed was done. Chike did not bother to cover the body. His brother's blood still clung to his hands as he ran. He knew the villagers would find the corpse soon, but none of them would dare to challenge him. His father's shadow was still heavy in their hearts. Fear was enough to silence them. Breathless, Chike burst into the shrine. The air was thick with smoke, bitter with the smell of herbs and blood. The walls flickered with the dim light of oil lamps. At the far end, the chief priest stood waiting. His face was grim, his eyes hard as stone. Chike dropped to his knees, panting. With trembling hands, he stretched out the blood he had brought, his voice cracking. "It is done. This is my brother's blood, just as the god requested." The priest did not answer. He took the blood with careful hands, his gaze never leaving Chike's face. Then, without a word, he turned and disappeared into the inner chamber. For a long moment, Chike knelt in silence, the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then it began, the deep throb of a drum, slow at first, then faster, echoing through the shrine. Chants rose like a tide, voices low and haunting, speaking a language Chike could barely understand. The sound filled every corner, wrapping around him, pressing against his skin. He closed his eyes. His chest heaved as he tried to steady his breath. He could still see Ebuka's eyes in his mind, wide, filled with shock and fear. The memory twisted his stomach, but he forced it down. I had no choice. I had no choice. Minutes dragged like hours. Sweat rolled down his face, his knees aching from the hard ground. At times, the voices in the chamber rose so loud, it felt as if the very walls would crack. At other times, they dropped into whispers, like secrets crawling through the dark. Chike's hands clenched against his thighs. He felt the weight of what he had done pressing on him, heavy as stone. Yet beneath the fear, a flicker of pride burned. If the gods accepted him, he will live a longer life, amassing more wealth with nothing to fear. At last, after what felt like forever, 20 long minutes, the chants ceased. The drums fell silent. The priest stepped out slowly, his expression unreadable. In his hand, gleaming faintly in the lamplight, was a small black bead. The shrine was silent, heavy with the smell of blood and burning herbs. Chike's chest heaved as he knelt, his hands trembling slightly as the priest held the small black bead in his weathered palm. "Your sacrifice has been accepted," the priest said, and Chike felt a shiver run down his spine. "Your life is now in the hands of Alagbaga. You will live as long as the god allows." Chike's heart raced, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was triumph. He swallowed hard, his throat dry, and whispered a quiet, almost breathless, thank you, wise one." Pride swelled in his chest. He had outsmarted death. He had bound himself to power greater than any man in Umuagu. The priest raised the bead higher, and Chike's eyes followed every movement. "This bead is the sign of the covenant. Wear it on your first son. He will also pass it to his first child. Whoever bears the bead will be compelled by the power of the bead to pass it to their first offspring until the god is in your 10th generation," the priest continued, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Alogbaga will be born in your bloodline. Not now, not in your lifetime, but in the 10th generation. The first child of that generation will carry the god spirit. Chike's mind spun. He imagined the power, the fear that child would command, the awe of everyone who would bow before him. A wicked smile crept onto his lips. "I did it. I really did it," he muttered under his breath, gripping the bead as though it was the crown he had always dreamed of. The priest's gaze lingered on him, dark and unreadable, but Chike didn't care. All that mattered was that the covenant had been sealed, that his family's future was now intertwined with the god of destruction. He promised himself he would guard this bead with his life, pass it carefully to his son, and ensure it continued down the generations. Clutching the bead tightly, Chike rose to his feet, feeling an electric thrill course through him. "I have conquered death. I am untouchable," he whispered, almost laughing to himself. The cold night air outside slapped against his face, but it did nothing to dampen his joy. He felt unstoppable, triumphant, and for the first time in years, truly powerful. Even as he left the shrine, Chike didn't notice the fear that flickered in the priest's eyes, a warning of the weight of what had just been done. To Chike, it was only victory, the start of a new era for his bloodline and for the god who would one day walk the earth in human form. The shrine was quiet now, the echoes of Chike's departure fading into the heavy night air. The chief priest stood at the entrance, his bare feet brushing against the cold earth. He remained frozen, rooted to the spot, his hands trembling uncontrollably. The black bead still glowed faintly in his memory, and his mind replayed every moment of the ceremony. He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, his fingers shaking. His voice, barely above a whisper, broke the silence. "What have we done?" he muttered to himself, his eyes darting around the shadowed corners of the shrine. "What have we allowed?" The flames from the small oil lamps flickered, casting long, twisted shadows across the walls. The smell of blood still hung heavy in the air, a pungent reminder of Chike's brutal offering. The priest's chest tightened, and he felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Never before had he felt such dread while serving Alawagbaga. For years, he had carried out the god's commands, taking lives, accepting sacrifices, and ensuring the rituals were done perfectly. Yet tonight was different. The pact Chike had made, the audacity of his request, the cleverness with which he had circumvented death itself, it left the priest shaken to his very core. "What have we done?" he repeated, louder this time, as if saying it aloud could somehow undo the choice, the blood that had been spilled, the covenant that had been sealed. "For the first time, I fear the God I serve." His hands lifted to his face, covering his mouth as he tried to steady his breathing. He glanced once more at the altar, where the faint traces of Chike's offering still lingered. The shadows seemed darker now, almost alive, stretching toward him like hungry fingers. The priest's knees went weak, and he sank to the ground, the weight of what had transpired pressing down on him. In the silence, he could hear the distant rustle of trees outside, the whispers of the wind carrying with it an unseen menace. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized the magnitude of what had been done. Chike's life was spared, yes, but the god's presence had been woven into his bloodline forever, and somehow the priest knew deep in his bones that the consequences of this night were only just beginning. His eyes were wide and terrified wide, reflecting both awe and horror. His lips trembled as he whispered one final time, "May the gods forgive us." As we delve into this haunting tale of Chike, the son of a feared man, who stepped into his father's dark path and struck a covenant that should never have been made. From the blood on the altar to the trembling words of the chief priest, every moment whispered of a curse that will not end with him, but stretch into generations unborn. What price will his greed demand, and who will pay it when the god comes calling? Stay with us, for the story is only beginning. Subscribe now and join us as we journey deeper into the shadows of Chike's destiny.